What's cracking, everybody? XehrFelrose here, bringing you some Pokemon GO Battle League content. In today's video, we're taking a little bit of a different spin on the videos. I have been on vacation for the whole weekend, so I don't have any Evolution Cup stuff to do yet until I get back. Just seeing the family. Hopefully, I'm recording this before, and so hopefully I had a great time. But today, we're talking about how I team build for the GO Battle League. And I know this has been a video that a lot of people have been asking to see, so I'm glad that I can finally find a way to properly present it. And while I hope that, you know, the shorter form video is good, I also want to just mention before we get started that I'm on Metafy. I do offer coaching and team building. A full in-depth 1-hour session of team building is something that I offer. If you want to get that one-on-one, ask the questions, do some examples with me as well, or if there's anything else as well in this game that you're trying to, kind of, get a better handle on, or if you just want to get with somebody who can help you improve your gameplay, check out the link in the pinned comment description for that. And we're gonna get into this here. Just gonna go into a couple of things. One thing I want to point out, you come to the PV Poke, you want to make a team, right? So what do you want to do? Is first thing I like to do is I look at the train page, right? So the train page, what that is you ignore this training battle thing right here, right? Like, you go to the training analysis right here. I've shown you guys in a few videos here. You can go to the training analysis and you can pick your league, right? And so what this does is it shows you not only some top picks for the league you're looking at, but also if you scroll down, it'll show you some teams as well. So Dragonair, Lantern, Vigoroth is the current top team on PV Poke. The team rating is essentially how it's doing against all the other teams in the meta. Another one, Jellicent, Basti, Lickitung, right? Jellicent being a really awesome core breaker right now, being able to handle a lot of things like the It and Dugong both do really well against like Skarmory and Whiscash. So that's also really a really good place to find some teams. But let's say, we're talking about, something completely different, right? You don't find any teams on here that you like, but you really want to play a specific Pokemon. So let's go jump over to the team builder and let me take you through my kind of quickly my process of what I do when I'm building teams. So what we're going to do here is we're going to use the Great League as an example. Okay, I'll see if I can make one happen for the Ultra League. It depends on depends on how coherent I think I can make it work. But the first thing that I always do whenever I do a team builder, no matter what it is I drop down the advanced settings. I'm going to take the scorecard length and I'm going to change it to 80. And I'm going to enable Shadow Pokemon. And you'd be surprised at how many people don't know that this stuff exists. This is important right here. Shadow Pokemon obviously can do very differently than their non-Shadow counterparts, so you can't just see Venusaur and assume that the Shadow Venusaur is going to perform the same, because there are always differences. And the scorecard, what that does is it takes the number of entries that are listed underneath your team that you've seen, and it increases that from 20 to 80. And so if you're looking to get just a very narrow glimpse at a meta, you can leave it at 20, but I always put it to 80, especially for the open league. So let's use a tried and true Pokemon in this meta, Lickitung, as our first example, okay? So you have a Lickitung, you just built it. Like, what do I want to run with this thing? I don't know. You go find videos, you find a bunch of teams running Lickitung, and you're not really sure why they work. So what I always do when I'm looking for one specific Pokemon is I want to find out, what can I pair with this thing? So if you just put Lickitung in by itself and hit the rate team button down here, what you're going to do is you're going to populate the scorecard, right? So the letters, I'm going to tell you to ignore them completely, because right now they don't matter. And neither does this meta scorecard, but it's good to know what these mean if you don't already know. So if you've got the harsh, the big white circle with the blue, that means that that's a dominating win. A empty circle with the blue is a close win. A gray is a tie. And then the X's, the small X is a close loss, and the big X is a dominant loss. So we're talking dominant loss, like Ampharos into Steelix kind of stuff, like that kind of loss. So keep that in mind. And then we're going to be able to see the threats, right? So this is where I usually go when I'm team building first, to see what are the top things that beat my Pokemon in this meta, right? Vigoroth is going to be one of the top ones, Registeel. Cresselia here is listed, even though it's typically not a bad matchup. We'll talk about that in a minute. I want to talk about the team first. So you see that there are definitely some things, fighters and, some other stuff in this meta that really, dark types are usually pretty good against it. Skarmory is another one. So Lickitung is usually pretty safe though. So let's go further down here and talk about the potential alternative section. So what the potential alternative section does is it's going to show me all of the things in the unpicked you know, options that I haven't chosen yet that beat the top issues for this team. And this is where I'm going to talk about two things. First, this is where you can go to find ideas for a really good core mate. So what a core is it's two Pokemon that cover their weaknesses each other very, very well. So the issue that you're going to find with Lickitung is that it has an issue with steel types, and it has an issue with fighting types, and sometimes also dark types. So we want to find something that can beat those. But there's one other thing that I want to bring up, and it's the fact that Cresselia is over here. Now, we can talk about this Cresselia matchup, and if you ever want to go and find a matchup, you can go to the actual icon and click it, and it'll open up a new window. It'll play out this matchup, and there's two things that I want you guys to look at. First of all, this is a Future Sight Cresselia. Not all of them are on Future Sight. As soon as you see Moonblast, we can change it. Moonblast Cresselia actually loses to Lickitung, and it's not exactly close. I mean, it leaves, you know, you leave Lickitung in the red, but it's not dominant, right? And you can see in every even shield situation, Lickitung wins. If you remember when we had Future Sight up, Lickitung only loses the ones, but it wins the zeros, and it wins the 0 to 0 situation, it wins the 2s. So what that means is it doesn't mean that Cresselia always wins, so we can actually write Cresselia out of the equation here as an issue. So let's ignore everything that has Cresselia and just look at what beats everything else. Registeel's up here, and I feel like that's mostly weighted towards Cresselia and Carbink. Vigoroth is an issue, Bastiodon's an issue, Registeel's an issue. Annihilape is something that comes up to me here as well. Poliwrath, right? Poliwrath is also something. So let's make the Poliwrath and Lickitung. So the reason why we picked it is because, as you can see by the X's bouncing back and forth, right? We have a situation where Poliwrath covers most all of the issues that Lickitung has. So this is what a core typically looks like. And there, like we said, there's no perfect team. You can't beat everything, and not every core is going to be perfect. There's going to be core breakers, and the more Pokemon that get released into this game, the more often this is going to happen. So the thing that I want you guys to remember when you're looking at this is called context, okay? Yes, we know that Cresselia firmly beats Poliwrath, but we've also seen that Lickitung can win this matchup. So this is called context in the fact that as long as you know what's really happening here, we don't have to worry about this one, okay? Medicham, very close for Lickitung. Lickitung can even possibly win this matchup if it correctly shield, if they have dynamic punches, what it is. But that's the other thing, is that Medicham is almost non-existent in the meta anymore. So again, not worried about it. Superior, a lot less superior in the meta. If I see a superior, I deal with it, okay? Venusaur is something else. Maybe you see a little bit more of that, but again, we also know that Lickitung is very neutral into it. Talonflame is another issue where, yes, you know, it still beats Lickitung, but it's still neutral. You can play yourself out of that situation with some good, you know, swapping and team play. Like, it doesn't have to be one matchup into the other matchup, and you don't have to play it exactly as the way that PvPoke says it. But for the sake of this video, just keep these things in mind while you're team building, okay? In this potential threat section, you're going to see a lot of the top issues for this team. And to be completely honest, in the current Great League meta, the only thing that I see here is Poliwrath is an issue. So at this point, we could even say, well, what is there something that functions similarly to Poliwrath that also beats most of these things or has good matchups into them? The first one that comes into my head is Annihilape. So maybe we just change this to Annihilape. And we're getting close to where I've been with a couple of teams this season, right? So Annihilape, you know, doesn't really beat Cresselia, but it still has good play. Carbink, I'm sure it wins the 2s. I'm sure it does. Yeah. Carbink loses the 2-shield scenario pretty cleanly here. The only way that Carbink can possibly beat an Annihilape is by landing Moonblast. If you at any point correctly shield a Moonblast, Annihilape's going to win that matchup. So again, context, right? So then we're getting to the point where we have Mandibuzz. Okay, that's a bit awkward, but Annihilape with Ice Punch has some play into it, right? And Superior, again, Ice Punch has play into it, and where Lickitung is very, it's very neutral. Talonflame could be an issue because Annihilape doesn't have the water typing and coverage that the Poliwrath has. But overall, this looks like much tighter of a core to me. And you guys have seen on this channel a couple times this season, I've played, you know, Annihilape and I've played Lickitung together. I actually played a team that we had Annihilape in the lead and Lickitung and Skarmory in the back. And in that particular case, both Lickitung and Skarmory came up in that alternative section, and I figured, well, they both core very well together as both Annihilate and Lickitung, and then Annihilate and Skarmory. And Skarmory and Lickitung are actually pretty not bad of a core, so that's a kind of a team where it all synergizes very well. But let's put this in perspective here, okay? Let's talk about Annihilate, Bleed, and Lickitung. All right. So the last thing I'm going to cover is how to determine what the third Pokemon on this team should be. And hopefully by the end of this video, you'll have gotten a much better idea of how I do my team building, because this is actually very, very much so exactly how I go through my team building, all those videos for metas and everything. So what I'd be looking for here is not so much my threats, right? It helps. It definitely helps. But Annihilate, Lickitung, so let's, a typical ABB team, right? So ABB means you have AB, which is your core, two Pokemon that cover each other very well, A in the lead, B in the back. And then the second B is like if you were playing double normal, double water, double steel, right? You just have Pokemon that are in the back that share the weakness. So if we were to play a team here and we wanted to use Lickitung to sweep a team, right? We would have to find something that would be able to lure out what Lickitung is weak against, and something that Annihilate could do well against. So in this particular case, perhaps we're looking to lure out a Poliwrath, or we're looking to lure out just something that beats Lickitung, right? Like a Skarmory, right? That's something that we could certainly look to lure out. So we would have to pick a Pokemon to put in the back in order to do this. Now, there's a couple of them that come to my mind very, very, very fast. And one of them is Registeel, right? Registeel, very safe Pokemon, very, very likely to, bring out a fighter in the back if there is one, and it gets shield advantage against a lot of things. A couple of other things, and goodness, I hope that this resonates with some of you, and if you're still watching this video, thank you very much for just being here and watching, because this is a point that's going to be very important. Bastiodon and Alolan Sandslash, you know what they have in common? Yes, they're both steel types. They're also double weak to fighting. So, under no circumstances in your life, in this game, should you ever safe swap something like Bastiodon or Alolan Sandslash, or heck, even Swampert is risky in Great League when there's grass types around. Because when you have something that's slow and sluggish like Bastiodon, or not so bulky like Sandslash, all that happens is you safe swap it, and the opponent comes in with a counter user, and now all of a sudden it's gone. And the opponent has nothing but a ton of energy because all they had to do was fully farm down. That's why you should never safe swap Alolan Sandslash and Bastiodon. However, in this team, if you wanted to safe swap Lickitung and put Alolan Sandslash or Bastiodon in the back, you would be successfully drawing out a fighter for using Lickitung, but also you're not using a Pokemon that just loses that matchup so dominantly and gets, the rest of your team gets destroyed, right? So you would sweep with Alolan Sandslash or Bastiodon. But in this case, we can throw Registeel up there because it is the #1 option. It does cover most things in this meta. And it is nice to see the letter coverages go up. Annihilate, weak 2, Flying, weak 2, Fairy, weak to Psychic. Lickitung and Registeel both have a lot of play into both of those things. You might have some difficulty with like Mandibuzz or a Pidgeot, but I feel like overall, this team would have a lot of play against the current meta. Now, that's also to say that Talonflame is painful, but in any case, what we're getting to see here is the last thing that I promise the last thing. I talk a lot, so I'm gonna make this the last thing, right? So you look at your potential threats now with a full team, and if, this list, Shadow Sneasel, Talonflame, Meganium, Toxicroak, Crocalor, Shadow Ninetales, and Luxray, and Nidoking, yeah, I'm gonna see maybe one of those in that whole list a day. Okay, Talonflame may be the exception, but I'm not seeing really anything else on this list. So the next thing you want to look at is you have your lead on the left and your back 2 Pokemon on the right. What core breaks you? Gligar could be an issue. This might even be worth maybe taking out Registeel. You could put something in like Dugong, for example, to be able to shore that matchup out. But then Cresselia would, again, it might be an issue, it might not be. But you have Ghost-type damage, both on Annihilate and Lickitung, that you could use against Cresselia that maybe it's not so much of a problem. And then you have like something like Skeleturge, right? So you want to make sure that you try to avoid a situation like this where you have something that's fairly meta beating you hard both in the front and the back. So we would make an adjustment here to try to eliminate this issue. And again, it's impossible to cover everything, but just try your best and do what you can to cover what you can't. Because if you can make it so that, Gligar and Skeleturge aren't the one that's core breaking you, and maybe instead it's Cresselia and Serperior that are core breaking you, you're gonna find yourself having a much better time in this Great League meta than if you were to let Gligar and Skeleturge be the things that completely core break you in the front and back, because those are much, much worse things to have to deal with. But guys, I hope this information has helped you. Let me know in the comments if there's any questions. I'm always happy to jump in my comments and help. I'm sure all of you know at this point that I respond to most of them. I either heart them or I say something in response. So I hope this information has helped y'all. Again, check me out on Metafy if you're interested in getting some coaching, or if you want to go more in depth on this topic. And also check out my Patreon and YouTube membership. You can become a link of my exclusive Discord, which has all my teams early on in the before they hit YouTube, and also an extremely awesome community that honestly I would pay to be a part of if it were me and my money. So I hope that I don't mean to be like, yo, come give me your coins, but like genuinely, like, that is a great Discord to be in, and I hope that, you know, at least some of you will look into it, because I know there's over 100 people in it and they're all wonderful and I love them all. So thank you guys so much for watching. I love all of you as well. I appreciate, you know, whether you're watching. If you haven't hit subscribe, please do, and if you have, wonderful. Thank you very much for all the support, and I hope to see you guys soon. Catch you in the next one. Bye bye.